Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is uncomfortable. And if it doesn't make you angry, it should at least make you think. Most people aren't broke because the system is against them. Most people are broke because somewhere along the line, they accepted a set of beliefs about money that are destroying them from the inside. Beliefs that sound reasonable. Beliefs their parents repeated. Beliefs society packaged as normal. But normal is financial slavery. If you want to retire comfortably, if you want freedom, if you want to stop worrying about bills and emergencies and unexpected expenses, then you have to do something most people never do: confront the truth. And the truth is brutal. You are making decisions every single day that are silently robbing your future. Not dramatic decisions. You're not buying sports cars and mansions. It's worse than that. You're bleeding slowly through everyday habits that feel harmless. That's why I'm going to walk you through the real financial traps, not the ones influencers talk about online, but the ones millionaires learn by experience, the expensive kind. But before we get into that, let me ask you a question. Are you serious about building wealth, or are you here for entertainment? Because if you want to stay the same, if you want to keep repeating the cycle, if you want comfort instead of progress, then stop watching. But if you're tired of being financially stressed, tired of working hard and having nothing to show for it, tired of feeling like the future is slipping away, then I want you to hit the subscribe button right now. Not because I need it, but because you need accountability. You need to commit to learning what wealthy people actually do. Now let's start with the biggest wealth killer. Crossmark 1, the new car trap, a guaranteed wealth transfer. I know, you've heard people say cars depreciate, but hearing the phrase and understanding what it means are two different things. So let's break it down with the kind of clarity that stings. The moment you sign that financing agreement, you've locked yourself into losing money for years. The dealership smiles, the bank smiles, the lender smiles, and you don't even realize you just volunteered to make them richer. Here, what most people don't understand. Cars don't just lose value, they drain cash in multiple directions. Interest payments, taxes, insurance premiums, maintenance, repairs, depreciation. When you add all that up, that $35,000 car easily becomes a $45,000.50 expense. And for what? The illusion of status. People finance cars to look successful, not to be successful. They want to feel respected, admired, validated. But do you want to know the truth? Most people don't care what car you drive. The people you're trying to impress aren't impressed. They're doing the same thing you are, buying things they can't afford to impress people who don't care. It's a cycle of financial insecurity disguised as achievement. Here's something people never ask. Why do wealthy people buy fewer new cars? Because we understand that every dollar tied up in a depreciating asset is a dollar that can't be invested, can't compound, can't build the future. Let me show you something. Say you take the difference between a $600 month new car payment and a $300 month used car payment, and instead of letting the bank eat the difference, you invest that extra $300 every month at a conservative 8% return. After 10 years, over $55,000. After 20 years, over $165,000. After 30 years, over $370,000. That isn't imaginary money. That's compound interest. That's the mathematical difference between freedom and stress. So when someone tells you buying new is no big deal, understand this. They are choosing immediate comfort over long-term wealth. And wealth is built by people who learn to resist that urge. Some of you are already getting defensive. I need a reliable car. Sure you do. That's why you buy a lightly used certified pre-owned vehicle that's 3 to 4 years old. Someone else already took the depreciation hit. You still get reliability, warranty, safety, functionality, without setting your future on fire. But what really kills me is that people finance these cars over 5, 6, 7 years. You're still paying interest when the car is worth almost nothing. And when you finally make the last payment, most people immediately replace it with another loan. They never own a car outright long enough to enjoy the financial relief. That is what banks count on. The banks don't want you financially free. They want you paying interest for life. They built the system, and you're playing the game according to their rules. Wealthy people play a different game. We ask one question every time we spend money. Does this purchase grow my wealth or shrink it? If it shrinks it, we think twice. If it shrinks it and the loss compounds, we avoid it completely. And that brings me to something even more important than car payments. The mindset behind the purchase. The average person buys based on emotion, what feels good now. Wealthy people buy based on logic, what strengthens our financial future. You cannot build wealth until you disconnect your self-worth from your possessions. You cannot build wealth while trying to look wealthy. That's the contradiction that keeps people broke. Now, before we move to the next wealth trap, I want to ask you something. Which camp are you in? The camp that drives money, or the camp that drives a car paid for with your future? If you're guilty of this mistake, admit it in the comments. Be honest, because awareness is the first step toward transformation. And if you're serious about learning how money really works, not the fantasy version they sell you on Instagram, but the real mathematical truth, then stay right here. Because in the next part, I'm going to expose the second wealth-destroying decision people make that feels responsible, but quietly traps them for decades. Be honest, have you ever financed a brand new car and later regretted it? What made you sign the papers? If this hit you hard, don't scroll. Like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this financial wake-up call. Before we move forward, I want you to sit with something from the last section. Your financial life isn't determined by big, dramatic events. It's shaped by small, consistent choices. One car, one loan, one payment, one rationalization. Every decision compounds, either toward wealth or toward poverty. Now let's talk about the second trap. And this one might hurt more than the first because society sold it to you as the dream. Crossmark 2, the too much house trap. The most polished financial lie ever sold. People love to say, buying a house is an investment. No, it isn't, not the house you live in. Your primary residence is a liability disguised as security, and I'm going to break down why. But first, notice something. Banks, realtors, builders, mortgage brokers, they all push the same message. Bigger is better, buy as much as you can afford, stretch your budget, lock in the dream. Why do they all say the same thing? Because your debt is their revenue. Your lifetime interest payments are their wealth-building strategy. You think you bought a home. What you really bought is a 30-year financial leash. Let's break it down. The mindset error. People decide how much house to buy based on emotions, pride, fear of judgment, what friends and relatives think, what their bank approves them for. They don't base the decision on maintenance cost projections, property taxes rising, insurance increases, heating and cooling costs, opportunity cost of trapped capital. They calculate affordability based on the monthly payment, not the total financial impact. That's like buying a tiger because you can afford the food for 1 week. The psychology of the big house purchase. The house becomes symbol of success, badge of adulthood, validation for hard work. But emotionally impressive decisions are often financially destructive decisions. The hardest lesson wealthy people learn early is this. You don't build wealth by impressing people. You build wealth by positioning money where it grows. Follow the money, WHOBNEFITS. Let's assume the bank approves you for a $500,000 mortgage. You feel validated. You feel successful. You think, if they approve it, I must be able to afford it. Wronged. The bank approves you for the maximum they can lend while maintaining acceptable risk. Meaning, they approve the largest loan you're likely to struggle through, not the loan that preserves your financial health. The bank's goal: maximize interest revenue. Your goal should be minimize financial vulnerability. Those two goals are opposites. The true cost of a mortgage. People love quoting the purchase price, but wealthy people calculate the total cost of capital. Let's run basic math. $500,000 mortgage. 30-year term. About 6% interest. Total paid over life. Approximately $1,075,000. Yes, you read that correctly. More than double. Now add property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, furniture and upgrades, landscaping, utilities. The real lifetime cost creeps toward $3 M. So you bought a $1.3 M liability, thinking you made a $500K investment. That's the delusion. Opportunity cost, the invisible wealth killer. Opportunity cost means the money you spend today isn't just gone, it's money that can't grow for decades. Let's say someone buys modestly and spends $300 less per month because they purchased a smaller home. $300 a month invested at 8% return. 10 years right arrow, $55,000. 20 years right arrow, $165,000. 30 years right arrow, $370,000. Same math as the car logic. These choices stack. They compound. They either build wealth or destroy it. Most people never run these numbers. They buy the biggest home they can afford, believing it's responsible. Responsibility isn't measured by monthly payments. It's measured by long-term financial resilience. The ego house syndrome. Let's call this phenomenon what it is. People stretch to buy big houses because they want validation. Listen carefully. If your home size is determined by what other people think, you don't own your home. Your insecurity does. The wealthy ask one question before buying anything. Does this make me richer or poorer? Most people never ask. The alternative strategy used by the rich. People assume wealthy individuals always buy big houses. Wronged. Look at real examples. Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, Charlie Munger. They live far below their means. Why? Because every unnecessary dollar tied to lifestyle could be compounding into multi-millions. Wealthy people use homes strategically. Primary residence equals modest. Rental properties equals income-producing assets. Appreciation plus cash flow creating wealth. The average person does the opposite. They buy the flashy primary residence and avoid owning rentals because they think rentals are too much work. Result: they own liability. The wealthy own assets. The 30-year wealth trap. Most people never realize a mortgage isn't just debt. It's a decision that determines your financial flexibility for decades. If your housing costs take 35–50% of income, you don't have margin for investing, emergencies, retirement, wealth building. You're living in a gilded cage. It looks beautiful, but you're trapped financially. The simple rule that protects wealth. If the bank approves you for $500K, buy a $250K house. If they approve $300K, buy $150K. Live in comfort, not excess. Take the savings and invest automatically every month. This single decision can mean decades earlier retirement, complete financial freedom, generational wealth. But most people won't do it because comfort now feels easier than wealth later. And that's the internal war everyone faces. Ego versus discipline. Validation versus freedom. Appearance versus reality. Most people choose ego. Choose freedom instead. We're just getting started. In the next section, I'm going to expose the third financial trap, one so common and socially encouraged that people don't even realize it's draining thousands per year. Now that we've dismantled the myths around cars and houses, it's time to face a habit even more destructive because it feels harmless, ordinary, and justified. People understand a $50,000 car or a $500,000 home is expensive, but what they don't realize is that small, repeated financial decisions can bleed more wealth over a lifetime than one major purchase. And the worst part is, you won't feel it until it's too late. The third silent wealth killer is eating out. Restaurants, takeout, delivery services, coffee shops, fast food, vending machines, even those little snacks you grab because you're tired or in a rush. You think these purchases are small, convenient, a necessary relief from your busy life, but they are draining your financial future drip by drip. Most people never calculate the true cost of convenience eating. They look at a $12 lunch and think, it's only $12. They order a $6 coffee every morning and tell themselves, it's just coffee. They get dinner delivered for $25 because they're exhausted and assume it won't make a difference. But here's what they don't do: multiply. If someone spends $12 a day eating lunch out, that's about $60 a week. Multiply that by 4 weeks and it becomes $240 a month. Multiply that by 12 months and suddenly it's almost $3,000 a year. And that's just lunch. Add morning coffees, snacks, dinners out, weekend brunches, date nights, impulse takeout orders, delivery fees, and you're easily looking at $5,000 to $7,000 a year spent on temporary satisfaction. That money isn't buying nourishment, it's buying convenience at the expense of your future. Here, where it gets painful, people say they don't have money to invest. They say only rich people can save. They say salaries aren't enough to build wealth. Yet those same people willingly hand over thousands of dollars every year to fast food chains, delivery apps, and coffee franchises that are laughing all the way to the bank. Starbucks doesn't become a billion-dollar corporation because rich people are buying lattes. It becomes a billion-dollar corporation because people struggling financially are convinced a daily luxury is harmless. That is the trap. You aren't just spending money, you're signaling your priorities. Every dollar you spend is a vote for the lifestyle you choose. You can choose comfort or you can choose wealth. You cannot choose both at the same time. But here, where the real financial devastation happens, compounding. If someone spends $5,000 a year eating out instead of investing, they aren't losing $5,000. They're losing decades of compound growth. Let's do conservative math. If you invested $5,000 per year for 30 years, earning just 8% annual return, you'd have roughly $566,000. That's over $500,000 from avoiding impulse food spending. Without earning more income, without winning the lottery, without starting a business, simply by redirecting food spending habits from consumption to investment. The numbers don't lie. People do. They lie to themselves to justify behavior that directly steals from their future. I'm not telling you to never eat out. I'm not suggesting you live like a monk, depriving yourself of pleasure. What I'm telling you is that wealthy people are strategic. They eat out intentionally, not habitually. They cook at home regularly. They meal prep. They bring lunch to work. They learn basic cooking skills, not to save money in the moment, but to build wealth over decades. They treat restaurant meals as an occasion, not a default solution to laziness or exhaustion. Eating out occasionally creates pleasure. Eating out habitually creates poverty. There's another psychological layer most people ignore: the convenience cycle. The less a person cooks at home, the more dependent they become on convenience foods. The more dependent they become, the less likely they are to budget. And once convenience becomes a lifestyle, wealth becomes nearly impossible, because convenience destroys discipline, and discipline is the core requirement for wealth. That's why most millionaires didn't become wealthy by earning extraordinary income. They became wealthy by practicing extraordinary discipline. They understand the emotional cost of convenience. It delays discomfort, but multiplies future suffering. Delivery apps like Uber Eats, DoorDash, Foodpanda, they're not selling food. They're selling relief from effort, and people are paying for the relief, not the meal. Delivery fees, service fees, driver fees, tips. The final price becomes 2 or 3 times the cost of cooking the same meal at home. Yet people continue because they prioritize the temporary relief of avoiding effort over the permanent freedom of financial security. That is the psychological war wealthy people learn to win. They sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term independence. There's also the mental trap of rationalization. People tell themselves, I deserve it, I worked hard, I'm tired, I don't have time, it's only a few dollars. Every one of those justifications is an excuse disguised as self-care. But real self-care isn't avoiding discomfort. Real self-care is protecting your financial future, reducing stress, and investing in a life where you no longer feel trapped by bills and deadlines. Cooking at home, budgeting meals, planning groceries, these aren't punishments. These are acts of self-respect. And here's a harsh truth. Your spending habits reveal your values better than your words ever will. You can say you want to build wealth. You can say you want financial freedom. You can dream of retiring early and living comfortably. But if your spending patterns contradict your goals are fantasies, not plans. Wealth isn't built through intention. It's built through action. If your wallet doesn't match your ambition, you are your own obstacle. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you can change. But change won't happen unless you understand the psychological addiction to convenience. Convenience creates dependency. Dependency destroys discipline. And without discipline, there is no wealth, no freedom, no future worth fighting for. Every wealthy person eventually learns how to separate wants from priorities, convenience from necessity, feelings from financial decisions. That separation is the foundation of wealth. Without it, every raise, every bonus, every side hustle will disappear into mindless consumption. So stop saying you can't invest. Stop saying your salary is the problem. Stop waiting for more money to appear before you start building wealth. Wealth is not built with what you earn, it's built with what you keep. And every unnecessary food purchase is money you're refusing to keep. You're handing your future to corporations that calculated your psychological weaknesses decades ago. The people working in fast food and coffee shops aren't stealing your financial future. The corporations designing the systems aren't stealing it. Your own habits are. That's the hardest truth to swallow, that the enemy isn't out there. It's in your decisions, your impulses, your rationalizations. Financial freedom isn't a dream denied by circumstance. It's a dream surrendered through daily habits. If you're guilty of this mistake, acknowledge it. Awareness creates space for transformation. And transformation begins with one decision: choosing discipline over convenience. Because in the long run, discipline is convenience. It creates a life where money works for you instead of against you. And now that we exposed the third wealth trap, we move to the fourth, a psychological beast fueled by social pressure, ego, and insecurity. The next trap destroys wealth quietly, invisibly, and seductively. Tell me to continue when you're ready for part 4, the final chapter. Now we arrive at the fourth and fifth traps, and these two are the most psychologically destructive because they rely not on logic, but on identity. The fourth trap is clothing, accessories, and constant consumption driven by social pressure. This trap is subtle because people genuinely believe they're buying things they need: new outfits for events, better shoes for work, updated wardrobe because styles change every year. But beneath the surface, it's not about clothing at all. It's about insecurity disguised as self-expression, status signaling disguised as necessity, and dopamine disguised as self-care. People don't buy clothes, they buy feelings: confidence, validation, belonging, admiration. Yet those feelings fade instantly, while the financial consequences compound relentlessly. The truth nobody wants to admit is simple. Most people buy clothes to impress people who don't care. They purchase temporary identity boosts that vanish after a single wear. They buy things to project an image they hope will protect them from judgment. And when that image fades, they buy again. That endless cycle is exactly what fashion corporations want: recurring revenue from recurring insecurity. Clothing isn't the problem. Excess consumption is. People upgrade wardrobes seasonally because marketing manipulates them into believing what they already own is outdated, unfashionable, or insufficient. Advertisers don't sell jackets, they sell inadequacy. They don't sell shoes, they sell perceived social approval. And people fall for it every single day. What makes this trap especially dangerous is how quietly it destroys wealth. A $60 shirt doesn't trigger alarm. A $120 pair of sneakers feels justified. A $40 accessory feels harmless. But those purchases stack invisibly into thousands over a year. A closet full of items worn once or twice represents a graveyard of lost financial potential. And there's a deeper cost: the habit itself. Once someone accepts emotional spending as normal, discipline erodes. Emotional spending doesn't stay limited to clothes. It spreads to gadgets, vacations, tech upgrades, hobbies, impulsive purchases, daycare, lifestyle inflation. It becomes a mindset of consumption rather than production. The wealthy never operate from this mindset. They buy purposefully. They purchase fewer but higher quality items that last. They don't upgrade wardrobes because trends shift. They replace clothing only when it wears out. That's not frugality, that's deliberate financial strategy. But the clothing trap has evolved. Social media magnifies insecurity by creating pressure to never repeat outfits in photos, posts, or videos. Influencers normalize constant consumption. People subconsciously internalize the belief that repeating a shirt is embarrassing. That belief is financial poison. Clothing companies and platforms work together to engineer psychological dependence. Fashion used to be about protection and utility. Now it's about identity and social ranking. And when identity becomes tied to possessions, wealth becomes impossible. You cannot fill an internal void with external purchases. You cannot buy confidence. You can only rent self-esteem temporarily, and the rental payments never stop. The wealthiest people in the world wear the same outfits daily, not because they lack money, but because they understand priorities. Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, they know decision energy should be spent on wealth creation, not on image maintenance. Their clothing expresses discipline, not carelessness. And here's a harsh truth. If the richest people wear simple clothing while the poorest people chase trends, something is deeply broken. The people with the least money spend disproportionately more on appearances. That inversion reveals a painful psychological reality. People use consumption to mask internal insecurity. They don't want to look poor, so they spend money that guarantees they will stay poor. Now let's address the fifth trap: subscriptions and memberships. This trap is terrifying because it operates invisibly. Unlike a car purchase or restaurant bill, subscription charges are automatic, forgettable, small enough to ignore, but powerful enough to accumulate into financial destruction. Gym memberships people never use. Streaming services people barely watch. Software subscriptions for tools they no longer need. Phone apps with hidden monthly charges. Premium memberships for perks no one uses. These microleaks drain wealth steadily because they bypass conscious spending decisions. A recurring charge requires no action, no purchase, no emotional trigger. That automation is designed to keep you paying indefinitely, not because you use the service, but because canceling requires effort. Companies understand something most consumers ignore. People avoid friction, inconvenience, confrontation, and decision fatigue. So they remove friction when subscribing and add friction when canceling. The psychological game is sophisticated. Free trials convert to paid subscriptions automatically because most people forget to cancel. Subscription bundles encourage overspending because dividing cost across multiple services hides the true total. The death by 1,000 cuts happens silently, month after month. And when people finally review their accounts, they're shocked to see hundreds disappearing without awareness. But subscriptions reflect something deeper than laziness. They reflect emotional avoidance. People use entertainment subscriptions to numb stress and anxiety. They pay for distraction instead of confronting financial issues. They avoid reviewing finances because it feels uncomfortable. They avoid canceling because it forces them to admit they wasted money. That emotional avoidance compounds into decades of stolen wealth. A $15 monthly subscription feels harmless. But $15 monthly invested for 30 years grows to almost $18,000 at just 8%. And most people aren't wasting $15, they're wasting hundreds per month. Streaming services, gaming subscriptions, cloud storage, magazines, premium apps, product membership programs, premium shipping memberships, food delivery subscriptions, all silently siphon wealth from financially stressed people. And here's the psychological twist. Subscriptions train people into dependency. Entertainment becomes constant, immediate, always available. They can't be alone with their thoughts. They can't tolerate silence. They constantly require stimulation. And people who require stimulation cannot build wealth because wealth requires delayed gratification, patience, boredom tolerance, and long-term thinking. Subscription dependency destroys discipline. The same corporations draining people monthly are the ones selling them stories of self-care and relaxation. Yet true security doesn't come from entertainment. It comes from finances under control. Let's expose the final truth. These 5 categories, cars, houses, eating out, clothing, subscriptions, aren't the real problem. They are symptoms of the deeper issue, a mindset conditioned for consumption rather than wealth building. A mindset trained to pursue comfort instead of resilience. A mindset addicted to immediate gratification instead of compounding growth. Wealth is not built by those who earn the most. Wealth is built by those who spend the least on things that don't produce value. Wealth isn't accidental. It's engineered through discipline repeated over decades. Most people refuse discipline and then blame circumstances, employers, or the system for their financial prison. But prison bars made of debt and impulse were built by personal decisions. You now know the traps. You understand how habits become destiny. The question is, will you keep doing what everyone else is doing and stay broke, or will you take control and redirect your financial future? It won't feel glamorous, it won't earn applause. No one praises the person with discipline. But decades later, discipline pays dividends comfort never could. Most people choose immediate relief and lifetime struggle. The wealthy choose temporary discipline and lifetime freedom. The decision is yours. How many paid subscriptions or unused purchases do you think are silently draining your money every month? Pause for 60 seconds, check your bank statement, cancel at least one subscription, then comment "canceled" below to hold yourself accountable, and join this community of future millionaires.